Hi everyone, we are live, and I always have to say that it's just it's beautiful here. And in case you didn't know, my name is Toni Weel. I'm here with Sara, my co-host, and with our well, he's almost always a part of the podcast right now because he always has so much to share. That is Thad Cheatham. And at least I am coming from beautiful, sunny, hot Florida already. Today, we were going to talk about one word that we actually cannot say because then, YouTube would get all over us, but we call it the C word. And no, it's not the C-19, it's the other C. And it's actually pretty ridiculous that we do have to do that. So we were just before we started to open this up, talking about another platform where we can say and use the words whatever we want and build that platform out, which is Garden of Eden.social. And no, that is not the one on Facebook. That is a separate platform, Garden of Eden.social. And but the topic today was not only that C word, it was also about parasites. And there is so much misinformation about the two, actually, and also about the parasites. And do we need them? Do we have them? Do we need to get rid of all of them? What is the cause of it? And how does it work when you have it in your body? How do you get rid of it? Do you need to get rid of all of it? So we're going to have a discussion about that. I personally do not have any experience with it. And I have seen the pictures of people that they show them around like, look what I got out. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't really look like a worm. But even Dr. Morse has shown them in his glass jars. And, this is how a worm can look like. So, yeah, we don't want to have them in our body, but do they really have a function and why are they there? How did they get there? Did they get there from the meat we ate at some point? Did they get there from, yeah, the fish, where does it come from? It's an interesting topic and there is a lot to talk about, including the cause of that big C. And we have talked about that quite a few times actually on this podcast. Is what is it? So we're gonna dive in further with this, and we let that and Sara join in, and I'm for sure that that has a lot to say about it. And so let's get going. This is where you unmute that.
Okay, I didn't know who was going first, but yeah, I really like this topic because it's so important to understand the way these things work in our body, in our life experiences, because we are a living creature, living animal, as they say, but we are so much different than just a standard animal. I believe in God, the divine creator, and I believe he created us separate from the animals, but kind of still similar to the animals, so that means that we as humans can be a host to certain parasites that will in get in animals. So anytime we have pets, we can be exposed to parasites, just from handling them, and especially if we accidentally let them lick on us or even lick us in our mouths, or if we ever give them a kiss or something, and sometimes because they're licking their fur and especially a cat, But that's not something to live in fear of either, though. We should just periodically do these parasite cleanses using herbs, and just be aware of that when we have animals, and then also even walking around in nature. If you walk in any kind of animal excrement, that you can get them that way too, because they can get into the pores of your body, that way. But then the biggest way that people get exposed to them is eating animal products, because parasites are in the animal flesh, a lot, whenever we go to prepare and cook that flesh. And then even whenever after cooking, you can still, be exposed to it. And some of especially the eggs can survive through cooking, and so that's how a lot of people get it. And there's different types of parasites for different types of animal products, so that's one of the biggest ways that people get exposed to it, and before I get too much deeper into the conversation, I'll give a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Is that I'll never forget a very interesting story that Dr. Morse told one time. He said he had this man come to see him that he had some major health problems, and he told the man, on the interview, or the first consultation, he told him what the protocol was, and that he was going to have to do all fruits, and do the herbs and all of that, and the man told him, he said, well, Dr. Morris, I'm sorry, I can't do all fruits. I'm a meat eater. I'm a butcher. I work with meat all the time, and I have to have my meat. And Dr. Morris was like, well, I'm sorry, I can't really help you efficiently, with this protocol if you can't give up meat at least at the bare minimum, a for a temporary period of time, if you absolutely have to. I don't remember if he said that part, but I imagine sometimes, we'll tell people that just to get them started, or, not to mislead them or anything, but to just encourage them. Because once they sometimes get started, then they get to feel better. Then they realize, they don't need to go back, because that's part of addiction. But my point though is that anyways, so he told the guy that, and then the guy was like, "Well, okay," and then I'll have to try to figure out something else. And so he left, and then his wife called him back, called Dr. Morse back in 2 weeks, and said his husband could barely get up off of the floor and get up out of the chair because he was in so much pain that he's willing to do anything. So he told him told her to tell him to do the protocol that he recommended, and he said he started doing the protocol. And he said that she called him back again later and said that my husband is even worse, and he's throwing up buckets of worms, and he's crapping out buckets of worms. And I don't know what to do because it won't stop, and Dr. Morris told her, said, well, just, keep going with it, and eventually they'll slow down and they'll stop, but she said that it went on like that for a few days until finally it stopped, and then he started to rapidly get better, as he went on with the protocol, but so it just shows that not only was he being exposed to them, because one of the first things that Dr. Morse asked the lady, and the man, was, does he ever wear gloves? And he said, no, I can't wear gloves because that's even more dangerous, because I might, get my glove hung up on either the saws that we use, or you can't use a knife even as easy sometimes when you wear gloves. But when you're handling all that raw meat again, you're gonna have your pores of your hands exposed to, the parasites that are in the meat, and so that's just one example of what I mean by, we can get exposed to things, not only just consuming it, but also handling it. So that's just one story I wanted to mention before I forgot about it. But let's go back to how I was going to start this, my part of the talk, and then of course I want to let Toni and Sara provide some added information. Is we have to first ask ourselves, Okay, if the parasites consider our bodies their host, I mean our bodies, yeah, our bodies their home, or we are their host, then that is the reason why they're wanting to be in our bodies, just like an animal, is because they're using our body as a home to proliferate in, to be able to reproduce, to be able to continue to, to live, to, just like, like their environment, instead of it being out in the, the wild without an animal, it has to have an animal's body. So that's why they're in our bodies in the first place. But also we have to look at, we have the type of terrain that the parasites thrive in. Because we have to have certain things in our bodies that the parasites want to feed off of. And a lot of times what the parasites like to feed off of and thrive in is a lot of waste. A waste and pollution and toxicity, and a buildup of candida and yeast as well, and just all the biofilms and all the starchiness and the yeast and the old dairy product residues, and all these, the starch residues and the grain residues. All those things are what, the parasites love to feed on. So first out the gate, if you keep your terrain really clean, then your chances of having parasites be really prolific in your body is way lower. And see, that's what people in the world right now that's trending a lot, is that you'll hear a lot of people these days talking about, oh, I think parasites are the cause of the C word. But what happens is you're blaming the symptoms for the cause, when it's really, you have to trace it back even beyond why the parasites are there in the first place. Yes, parasites will make the C word way worse and way more harder to recover from it. Yes, but they're not the cause. The cause is acidosis. And we can really say that acidosis is the cause to all disease. Because acidosis is what causes inflammation. Because there's a lot of people out there that will say inflammation is the cause of all disease. And then there's people out there that will say mucus is the cause to all disease, just like Dr. Sebi. But see, again, they're blaming the symptom, not the cause. And so, because mucus, it wouldn't build up and become so overwhelming to the body and contribute to worse problems if you didn't have the acidosis in the first place. So we have to remind ourselves that, and not get confused, and not chase the symptoms, which is what our society loves to do, because our society is based on a treatment-based society, and so we are going to love to chase after things that we can treat and put a band-aid on. So that's why people love these protocols and these medications. That's why I don't know if we can say the word or not, Tony, but there's a popular medication that came out during the whole COVID era.
Ivermectin.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if we could say it or not, but
I
but that
don't
is,
know.
I mean, our worlds and our natural communities, even of people using that medication and having great successes with helping their health to improve. And so they think, oh, that just proves that, parasites are the cause of all these problems that we have in the world. And I've heard that for so long, and yes, so let's make it very clear that they do make conditions way more exaggerated, or way worse, or way more chronic. But again, they're only there because you have a dirty terrain, a dirty body. Once you clean that up, they will naturally leave, because you do not have an environment where they really thrive. But it takes a lot of work to really get your bodies deeply clean enough to be able to get the parasites to leave, because they will fight tooth and nail, or tooth and, that, whatever that phrase is. I can't remember exactly how it went, but they will fight everything they can to stay inside your body, because they do not want to die. And I mean, I can only tell the story, and it may sound a little bit extreme, but I can only share the story on what I heard from other people. Is that I remember Hilda Larson talking about, on video. She was talking about how, after a couple years of doing major protocols with Dr. Morse, because she had been exposed to lots of parasites when she was younger through actually some bad water from a whale and then also some other sources too. But I remember her saying that she'd been detoxing for several years and then she was doing a strong fast. I can't remember what type of fast it was, but she said she remembered passing a living tapeworm and it came out of her colon and when she was using the bathroom and she said when it started coming out it was trying to go back inside of her and she had to pull it out, and she said it was a sign that they don't want to leave your body, they want to fight to stay inside, and so that's what I mean by we have to remember that it's going to take some time sometimes to see them be able to fully leave. And I've heard that story from several other people that they had to do lots of cleaning in their body before finally they got it to where all the parasites would start coming out. I even heard that from testimonials with people about even liver flukes and different things, that it takes a while to get the body to that clean enough level where the parasites will start to leave, and that's after seen a lot of clients where they would start to get out a lot of waste from their colon. I mean, I'm talking about massive amounts of chunks of old waste would start coming out, and then they would start doing like heal all tea enemas and not coffee enemas, not all those types of enemas, of course, but just water and heal all tea, and then also using lots of the herbs. And they would the only reason why they would do the enemas is it would help it come out even easier because of the water. But of course, like Dr. Moore says, most of the time you don't have to do that. That's why, because you can abuse them as well. You can use them too much. That's why in our communities we explain to people they're okay to use every now and then, but just don't you overuse them, but they do help sometimes, especially when you're doing like a liquid cleanse and you're not eating enough fibrous, foods. And but she's this individual I was talking to. She started seeing massive amounts of trash coming out of her colon, and then after she'd been getting out massive amounts for like 6 months, then that's when she started seeing also live parasites coming out of her too. And she had it all documented on film, and she was letting the waste come out into a bucket where she could see it. It wasn't just going into the toilet where she couldn't see what was coming out. So because she wanted to document it all. So it's very interesting how it works that way. And Dr. Jensen has talked a lot about this. He talked a little bit more in depth about, the waste in the colon and the importance of cleaning out the colon even more than Dr. Morris has, because Dr. Morris's big, thing is just helping us to understand the lymphatic system, which he's talked about the importance of the GI tract, of course, too, because that's a very important part of it all. But that's why I love to, combine, Dr. Jensen's teachings about these subjects with Dr. Morris. And the last thing I wanted to mention in this part of the beginning of the conversation, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Toni and Sara, is speaking of Dr. Jensen, I wanted to remind everyone that also what makes the environment in your body more hospitable to parasites is having negative emotions, and how negative emotions can be tied in with so many of the causes of the symptoms that we're experiencing, including the C word, because that's really all C word is just a symptom of weakness or dis-ease or toxicity in the body, and it was going on. Dr. Jensen in his book, he was talking about how that certain common bowel disorders are known to be linked to the mental side of being. It is known that colitis, for example, has as much to do with the thoughts and emotions as with the bowels. In fact, it has been clinically affirmed that nearly all functional bowel disorders have a definite mental counterpart. And so I have heard many times in different natural healing communities where they talk about a lot of the C word is old emotional stagnation, that even 30 to 50% of the development of it over their life, because sometimes it takes several years for it to develop into a chronic stage because it goes undetected, because a lot of the detection methods that the medical association has, it doesn't detect it at the early stages. That's why I recommend anyone, when you start to have these problems that are starting to happen and you think that you need to go to the to get yourself checked out, I recommend thermography. Thermography is wonderful because it's going to show the inflammation in the body where it's at, and then that will detect an area that later can develop into these worse conditions. But it also is showing you where the acids are congested the most in the body too. And that's why instead of mammogrammy for women, you need to get thermography. But see, the ironic thing is, and it's not ironic, it's designed by on purpose, is that the insurance in those things don't cover, for thermography, and you can't get thermography just anywhere. Like the nearest place to where we're at, because I'm in Central Alabama, is you have to go to Atlanta, because I don't know of anywhere around us that you can get thermography done. But of course, again, insurance is not going to cover it, of course. But that is a great tool. Now, in our communities, that's not really necessary because you're still going to just have to go through the protocol of doing the diet and using the herbs and all of that. But I'm saying if people really wanted to know why they're having a worse pain or worse problems in certain area of their body, and they want to pinpoint what's going on instead of getting a MRI or a mammogram or something like that that exposes you to way worse levels of radiation. Now, I'm not 100% positive, how much radiation you're exposed to with thermography, but I have heard that it's much better though on the body versus the traditional ways of detecting those things, in our bodies. Because with standard mammogrammy, it takes the C word has to get to like the more chronic stages for it to even be able to detect, especially with breast C word. It takes up to several years before they can even detect it because it starts out so small. But the inflammation starts real, soon, way before the tumor starts to get too big, or the growth or whatever it is. And then you definitely don't want to have what do you call it, biopsies, because man, biopsies are really bad because you're bringing into you're bringing into that pocket of trash, because that's really all a tumor is a pocket of trash. You're bringing into it, more trauma and other debris from, outside into that area. I remember reading a report about when you have a prostate tumor, that they'll do a biopsy from the wall of your prostate. I mean, not the wall of your prostate, from the wall of your rectum into the tumor of your prostate, and they said they'll bring trash from your residue of your colon into the tumor, and they said that can make it worse, because they'll jam it several times when they do a biopsy, and that's why they said it always, or not always, but a lot of times it gets worse after they do the biopsy. So that's why we try to recommend people to not do those if you can help it, of course. But that's all I really have to start off with what I wanted to say, Toni and Sara. So, well, why don't y'all go ahead and add to the conversation, and then we'll just take it from there.
Sarah, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, the butcher, the part where you talked about the butcher without using gloves,
Yeah.
that is so true. And they have no idea what they are exposing themselves to. And a lot of butchers do have a lot of issues. And I think when in one of our earlier shows, Toni, like when we first started talking, we did discuss this. And being a butcher is very hard on your health. I mean, I think even if they don't realize it, I mean, it does take a toll emotionally too on you, but physically touching all of the animal stuff every single day is it is not good for your health. And I hate to say it, at the end of the day, it's like the animals are, getting back for, I guess you being a butcher. But I hate to put it that way, but I mean, it's a rough it's rough on your body and your soul and your emotions, and a lot of people will deny it. And it's the same people that work in the slaughterhouses. You're exposed to so much. I mean, they are very dangerous areas. I have been in some of them, and not as like a protest or anything. I like to say, in my earlier years, I always thought that if I was going to eat meat, then I wanted to see the process. And plus, some of my jobs have taken me into areas where um, you see stuff. And then I have a lot of very close friends that are in the medical community and hospitals, and they're doctors and stuff. And so I feel like I've had exposure on seeing both ends of stuff, and I can tell you that it's not. You definitely shouldn't be handling it. And even our lunch meat that people bring into their homes and you put on your sandwich and you eat it. I was talking with somebody the other day, and her mother had leukemia. And she's just, we were just talking, and she said that we were not allowed to have lunch meat in our home. Now, why couldn't somebody with leukemia have just lunch meat even in the home? So that right there, I mean, that was like a spark in my mind of saying, I didn't ask her about it, but to me, that's, if somebody says something like that, doesn't that make you wonder, like, why can't it even be in the home with somebody that's immunocompromised? Is it off gassing? Is it what is it really doing? And I have no idea.
I
So,
can speak
yep,
to that,
go for
is
it.
that I don't know if it is. It's very possible it could be off gassing, but they may be also saying not to have it in the home because it could be very highly tempting because it could be, really addictive, because what it is that did you know all types of preserved meats like that, like your sausages, your luncheon meats, your hot dogs, of course, your several different types of meats like that. They have been preserved with nitrates. And that's been shown to cause the C word, right there. And that's why that they've had reports where when people eat a lot of processed, packaged those types of meats, that they have an incidence of colon C word going drastically up. And that's why they say that, and it's also because of the preservatives they're putting in it. But also, did you know that all types of commercially prepared meats have been given certain types of additives to make them look red instead of gray? Because, naturally, after an animal has been slaughtered, the meat will turn gray as the blood is drained from the meat, or as the meat ages, or as it, it sits there because it's decomposing, but they have to make it look more appealing, which is kind of barbaric if you ask me. They have to make it look red, or bloody, to look more natural. When really, like you were talking about, Sarah, that's really sad is that that's not natural to us because that's gory. That is a image of violence to us, and that's why it's really polluting our mind, our brains, like watching a horror movie or something like that with a lot of gore in it, because that's not something that's natural to us because that's not our species specific natural way. Now, to a carnivore, they love to see the look of blood and exposed flesh because that's their main thing that they're hunting for, but a lot of your cultures, especially your religious cultures, they would tell you that's why the Jewish people tell you not to consume it with the blood in it because the religious culture, especially the Bible, would tell you the life force is in the blood. And why does Dr. Morse always say, the kitchen is the blood, and they calls it the kitchen because it's the life giving source of material. And it's not only just the nutrients that's in the blood for the cells, but it's the life force. It's helping give life to the cells. So that's why a lot of your religious cultures tell you not to eat the blood. But did you know that a lot of your people will tell you that the meat doesn't taste near as appealing when once you drain it of the blood? It tastes real bland. But that's what seems very ironic to me, is that that's what makes it kind of in a way, evil and bad to consume animal products, because and that's why they're so addictive too, is because you're consuming something that's not really meant to be consumed on a spiritual level, as well as psychological and mental, and also physical too, but and that's also why people get so addicted to these things, not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually as well, because of how polluting it is to those higher states of awareness and being and culture, and that's why that they want you to get on those bandwagons where you do, the carnivore and the paleo and all those things, because it's going to suppress you from having conscious awareness, and so it is
Mhm.
sad, but yeah, go ahead, Sarah, keep going. I just wanted to add that in there.
No, I do agree with that, and not to mention all the salts and everything in it too. But they even tell the pregnant women they're not allowed to consume lunch meat.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, I don't know. And um, the Bible, the way that I am reading the Bible too, is that there's a lot of allegories in there. And so when they talk about draining the blood and the stuff like that, and I have not made it to that part in the Bible where I'll be reading through that, but it could also be too that it's an allegory for something else. So it might not even really portray, actual real blood too. But when I get to that part, I'll definitely dive into that. But yeah, Tony, did you want to input anything into that too?
When you talk about meat and that it could be an allegory, when we look at a fruit, whatever is around the center of the fruit could be called meat, the meat of the fruit. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's what is mentioned. I was all of a sudden when you guys were talking about, or you were talking about the effects of the slaughterhouses. When I was in my 20s, I had a friend who was an alcoholic. When I met him, he already was an alcoholic, and I knew that, if he was around me long enough, he would get away from it, which actually happened. But now I remember that he worked for a long time in a slaughterhouse. And,
Mm-hmm.
he was a young guy in his 20s, strong, good looking. There was no reason for him, no traumatic experiences in his life before. And now, when I think about, being in a slaughterhouse, seeing what is going on there, and having to do the certain work, I was like, yeah, I can see now why he was an alcoholic. It's in every aspect of our life. It is just detrimental to us. I would like to go back to the connection of, and I do want the word to say the word at least once, the connection of cancer being caused by parasites. And what I see happening is when people are really adamant about that, it's like you get to a point that you absolutely need to take responsibility of your eating habits. And when you say that that is the connection, one is caused by the other, it's like you don't have to change your diet. You don't have to do anything. You can, all you need to do is take the herbs for the parasite, and you're good to go, and it goes away. The C word goes away, and that's not the case. And it's so important to get this information out, and to get out that we really, really are in control of our own health, and that the food is so, yeah, in every aspect. I mean, if it's the processed foods, it is the even if it's not processed. I hear people about eating raw and eating handful of nuts, and we think they're raw and they're not, unless you can pick it from your own tree, which is usually not the case. To me, I get to a point it doesn't even matter what's on the package anymore because I just don't trust it. But the most important thing to me is that we realize that it comes from an acidic body. And there are levels of the acidity. Some people get the C word when they are children, when they are, in their teens or 20s. It's not just the older people. And when we, you know, I mean, in the groups, I see so many things about my child is 10 years old and has cancer. What do we do? And my first question, and which is upsetting to a lot of people, my first question always is, what exactly is the diet? That means that you have to be responsible. It's your responsibility as to how your health is going. And with the ivermectin, what people want, and I see this in many groups, even unrelated to Dr. Morse. I mean, I'm in fruitarian, raw food groups, on Facebook, on Telegram, and sometimes it's no use even responding to it. When you can take a pharmaceutical, because that is exactly what it is, there's nothing natural about it. And I think Dr. Morse even mentioned something about it too. If you take a chemical substance, it may kill something in your body. And now what? Now what are you going to do? Is that like, it's okay, now I'm cured, I can keep eating what I want, and oh well, if it comes back, I'll just do it again. I yeah. I think my thing is that I just want to get out is like, people, please do change your diet. And I understand it, for people it is difficult to go that whole fruit route because you have groups like fruitarians and all they eat is fruit and nothing else. And I don't think that is the right way to go either. There's no balance. And I would definitely add the greens to it. There are, I think, a huge variety of lettuces, make you eat your greens to have the balance. I have this, which is not put together by me, and is the mucusless foods list. And I mention that quite often because this is the basics of what we can and should eat. Do we need to do the all fruit for a while? Yeah, that would be great, but not forever. If I hear people that said I've been on 7 years of fruit, and I'm like, that's not really what we want you to do or what we suggest you would do, because there is other foods too. But in it is difficult for all of us to stay on 100% fruit. I mean, I would struggle with that. I sometimes want to eat something else, and if I have enough greens in my fridge, I definitely not open a can of beans, which is my prep food. I talked about that in another group. What would you do if nothing is available? Would you eat it? And I was like, well, I may eat it one day and then probably fast for 2 days to get the junk out of my body again. But going back to taking responsibility, I think that is the most difficult thing that we come across. That there is no pill or herbs or minerals that you can take to cure. It's always suppressing. And yes, there are herbs that can kill your parasites, but if you don't clean out your body and change the terrain from acidic to more alkaline, you're not healing. You're not healing your body. And I'll stop my rant. I'll leave it up to you, Thad and Sarah.
Okay, yeah, I had something great to add to what you were saying because everything you were saying is so true, and those are some great points about the subject that we're talking about. But I wanted to touch on something else that I see so many times, especially around, the C word diagnosis or anything that's a major life-threatening diagnosis that people get diagnosed with. is that the sad to say, and of course, I love to just inform people of the information. I don't really like to slander or talk negative about any kind of groups of people, because that's not really necessary. I mean, I know sometimes we can have an emotional response about it because it is so sad that there's such a suffering causing modality. That's why Dr. Morse gets so upset about it in his videos sometimes. But what I was saying though is that I just kind of like to just present the facts and present the truth, because when I hear Dr. Morse and other wise people say we really don't have to get our egos all puffed up and argue about right and wrongs. It's just really truth versus fiction. That's really all what it's about. And because truths are truths, whether people want to accept them or agree with them or not, it's still going to be there as a truth, and nothing's going to stop it from being a truth. That's why they call them, a lot of them, universal truths. But what I was going to mention is that there's so much fear propagated by the medical association on purpose to get you to go through with those protocols that they want you to go through with, because they know that some of the people will have family members that will say, I don't want you to take the conventional treatments because one of my relatives, so and so, Bob Henry, whatever, they a lot of times they'll mention their names if it was someone close to them, that they had to watch them suffer going through the treatments because of how hard the treatments are on people, especially chemotherapy and all of that stuff, and so the medical association knows that. So what do? They put fear into the individual, and they all act like, oh, you don't have no time to waste. We're telling you you're going to die in this amount of time. And that's just really sad because, they're not a truth. I mean, they're not a future fortune teller or can read the future or a time teller, whatever you want to call them. They can't predict the future. So that's even a crime against humanity that they would even scare people and tell them that they only have that amount of time left to live, because they don't know. Because the facts are that you have a higher chance of living longer not taking any treatments at all versus if you take the treatments. Because the treatments, they're so toxic that they don't do anything but make it worse. But a lot of times people want a quick fix again because they're scared. And they're like, I just want to get in there and tear it up and tackle it and just burn it away and poison it away and then get rid of it, cut it out, do whatever you have to, just get it gone so I can go back on with my life, because they're scared. They're scared of what'll happen, and they're scared of doing it the natural way because they're afraid it may not be fast enough, or they're afraid that all these people that are calling it quackery and stuff, they're afraid that they might be true, when they sometimes question if they should just listen to what the doctors say, but because they are told that it's a death sentence, they're told that it's so bad that puts fear into people, and that makes them identify as a victim, and it makes people think that, oh, I have no options, I have no choice, or I'm going to die, when really it doesn't really matter when we're going to die. We just need to live day to day like it's our last, because we're never guaranteed tomorrow. So live every day in the now with gratitude and appreciation and thankfulness, because I've heard so many stories of people that were at their peak of health and then they died in a car crash, or they were riding their bicycle because they love to ride bikes and they got hit by a car, and they were peak health that they could possibly be. I mean, they did everything perfect as they could, and they still died sooner than they planned on it, so we never know. So we really shouldn't be hung up on time, on when things are going to happen, and because some people, though, the problem is they identify with being the victim, because that keeps them having an excuse. So they don't have to take accountability. They don't have to be responsible for their actions. They can keep playing the victim. And they've done that for so long of a period of their life that sometimes when these things happen, they identify so strongly with having that condition that that's a part of their life so much that in order that in order to lose that part of their identity would be a losing part of themselves. So sometimes people that have had a condition, even some of these conditions that are not life threatening at first, like even diabetes and a lot of these different conditions, they identify so much with that being a part of who they are that it's hard for them to let go of that identity because they've identified with it too much, because they've held on to that way of thinking about themselves too much instead of thinking about themselves as they're, we identify too much even with having this physical body be who we are, when this physical body is not who we are at all. It's just our vehicle, it's just our spacesuit. It's not who we truly are. We are a spirit that is eternal. We are a spirit that's outside of this physical body. Now we are a part of the physical body because they kind of mesh together when we're having this human experience. But once the human body is gone, the spirit goes elsewhere. So my point I'm making is that we need to remember that we are so much more than this physical body, and that we don't need to identify too much with what the physical body has to go through and what happens. We need to just be so grateful for this human experience every second that we're alive, and have so much gratitude, appreciation, thankfulness, just love, because all of those energies are alkaline. All of those energies strengthen your DNA. And you have to do things to strengthen your DNA if you want your body to be able to recover from something that's weakening your DNA over time. And a lot of these more negative, pessimistic, down in the dumps, oh, I've lived a long life that's been hard, and I've come to the end of my life now, and I may have this horrible disease now, but I've lived a long life. I guess I'm ready to move on, because and they start to give up on life when they don't realize that, if you have a more positive way of looking at it, who knows, you might live another 10 years, even if you are in your 80s, because I mean, this, we never know how the future can go, and we're not supposed to know. We're supposed to just live every day like it's our last, live every day in the now, and just be optimistic for how many days we get to live in the world, and be here. But sometimes people, they give up, and they get tired of trying so much to be a human, because it can be challenging, so challenging to live here in this world, so I think it's just important to uh to just keep a positive outlook, and to just try to stay positive as you're going through these experiences, and not let the heaviness of life and the heaviness of the human experience weight us down, so I think that's a very important part to talk about when we talk about this subject, because Dr. Morse taught us to be holistic practitioners, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical as well, and so we have to definitely talk about these other components of it, because if you can't get past those heavy emotions, then how are you ever going to get to the stage where your body can fully recover and heal from these conditions? Because I've seen several people that I've talked to and helped them with a protocol, but they could not quit worrying and being stressed every day with fear, so much fear of what's going to happen. Or, it was always, what about this? What about this? What about, and they started becoming so hypochondriac and such a worrywart that, and it was also because they had a spleen weakness and a major nervous system weakness, and so that exacerbated it, of course, but they were also playing off of each other. The one was irritating the other, and that's my point, is that, we sometimes have to help ourselves come to a more emotionally, nervous system balanced state of living before we can start to have more physical healing, because the spirit is so weighted down that it's in such a panic state that it's hard for the body to be able to be relaxed enough so it can heal. Because if the nervous system's always irritated, it's going to be really hard to get the glandular system and the rest of the body to start to perform right, and to heal and to recover. So, and your adrenals definitely can't recover if your nervous system is always irritated. So that's another part of the whole equation too. And sometimes why people are so frustrated with their healing journey, even if they are doing all fruits, or even if they are doing all fruits and herbs, because the fruits and herbs are only going to reveal more spiritual and negative energy that's been going on in your life, and also in your environment and your families and people that you're around. That's why people start to say, well, I'm just getting even more irritable and even more sensitive and even more emotional when I'm doing the fruits and all the herbs, and that's because it's bringing out not only that stagnant emotional energy from their past, but also, their current life too, and so that's why it gets so challenging with people, so yeah, go ahead, and that's what I wanted to add, but go ahead, Toni, before we close her out for today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it is so important that people understand what is going on in their body. And that is usually the first thing that I talk about with people. What can certain foods do? What happens when you have this pain or this thought or that thought? So to me, what was very helpful for myself and for my clients is we use this little form, and it comes actually from Dr. Morse, where when you're journaling and you're writing things down to get a better connection with, what is going on. How do you feel after you ate this or that? And I've seen it as a very helpful tool for people to move on. But yeah, all the things that you touched on emotionally is I see people who still want to test, and if it was up to them, they would like to test every week to see, what is the progress. But that's not how the body works. And it only adds up to well, depression usually. It's I have seen it now with someone very close to me who needed to be tested for life insurance and had a test, everything perfect. The only thing was there was a liver problem, and he wasn't aware of that. And it got him quite depressed. Like, you think you're all healthy, and yeah, in that way, I was like, okay, the test was useful. Now you know that you need to, be more consistent with your diet. But it's a one-time thing, it's not something that you constantly do. And on the other hand, I believe whatever blood they take out, it should be in your body. And not in because they when they do these tests, they take a lot of blood, way more than they would need. So
Hmm.
I'm actually pretty much against all kinds of tests. I know there is a lot going on in my body. There's a lot of signs, and but what you do is you know that you need to be on the right foods, and yeah, I do have clients who have a very hectic life, and it's very hard for them to stick to a certain diet. That's why we don't need to be that rigid with our foods. Just knowing what happens when you do, eat something that if your body doesn't like it, it will show you right away. If you have no negative consequences, it doesn't mean that you can't keep doing it, but it's just like, okay, you this time you got away with it. But anyway,
Well,
it's
also,
yeah.
sometimes people will make excuses for eating more emotionally suppressive, junkier foods. They will overlook those signs that the body's giving them that they don't feel the best off of that food because it's suppressing their emotions and their feelings. So they'll will kind of push to the side the signs from the body that it doesn't really like that, or it doesn't feel the best, or it's lowering your energy and you're feeling weighted down. And but again, that's the suppression that they're wanting for suppressing their emotions. And then when you eat the energetically increasing foods, that's also the emotional revealing foods, because the more energy you have in the body, the higher your metabolism is in the body, the more things are going to be stirred up, the more things are going to be revealed. That's why so many people we come across, they think, oh, fruit caused this, fruit caused that. Well, no, it was the great revealer. It was already there going on. You had just been living a lifestyle of eating and consuming things that were suppressing those symptoms from coming to the surface to show you that you had something you needed to work on. It's the same thing with reason why people drink alcohol or use drugs of any kind, and it's because it's suppressive, and that's why people love suppressive diets. They love the keto and the paleo and all that. It suppresses, it's suppression, and that's why people will rave so much about those diets, because they'll give up all the grains and the beans and the starches and the processed foods. And then they'll feel a lot better just eating the animal products and all of those other types of foods they eat on those programs, because they gave up those other types of foods that were making them feel bad too. But then they don't realize over time that that's not leading them anywhere positive, because that's a diet that is of death. It's not of life. We have to eat life to have life, and it's all about a healthy lifestyle. If you do something temporary, you get temporary results. If you turn this into an exciting, enjoyable, life-giving lifestyle that you incorporate into your life habits that you have, any way that you possibly can, as much as you possibly can, no matter how hectic, no matter how busy, no matter how much responsibilities you have, the more life-giving substance you can put into your body, into your lifestyle, and more habits and more practices and more tools that you can use that will be life-enhancing to your body and your genetics and your total being of who you are, then that's investing in your overall positive experience on this planet, in your positive life experience. But see, that's what people don't realize. So many of the things that they want to use and dabble and participate in are not life enhancing. They're not life extending. They're not helping to prevent anything. It's just suppressing, or it's not life giving. It's life taking away. Because again, if you're not eating something that's alive, you're eating something that's dead. And then the body, if it's not alive, the body doesn't recognize it as food. It kind of thinks it's been poisoned or polluted. So it has to work on processing that trash or that pollution that it was exposed to. But if you eat something live that the body recognizes, then it says, "Oh, yes, that's what I need. That's what I can use," and it will go to helping it to, to thrive. And so, and also we have to remember one last thing I can mention, and I know we're about to wrap things up, is we have to eat energy. We have to not only eat energy in our food and our drinks, but we have to eat it in our environment. That's why nature is so important. That's why they want to try to get us to all move to these cities instead of being a part of nature, because they want to take us away from nature's element, because nature is healing, and that's why so many people, we feel more depressed when we stay inside the city, because there's so much pollution in the city, energetically as well as physically, like light pollution, noise pollution, air pollution, all of those things that a lot of times we don't think enough about. But it's also energetically pollution with the EMFs and the just the negative energy from the whole environment, and then that's another reason why people are so stressed out in cities versus living more in the country, because you're not as a part of the living ecosystem. We, again, being living beings, we need to immerse ourselves in life. And that's also why we feel so good when we have pets, because we are exchanging energies with those pets. The pets feel the energy from us and they love that, and then we feel their energy from them and we love that. That's why there's been studies that have shown that even allowing a cat to purr on top of you while it's sitting there, those vibrations from the purring helps the body to heal from, like, if they've had disease or sickness or illness, and it's because, again, the vibrations. That's why they talk about humming, singing, talking in a positive manner. Those are vibrations that are very beneficial and positive. But anger, yelling, saying nasty words, all that, that's the opposite. That's an acid, negative energy that is that's why you always feel, you don't feel good, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel happy when someone's upset. and they're yelling at you and talking negative and nasty, because that's just pure negative energy that's just vile and evil and negative. It's so uncomfortable. I'm very sensitive to that kind of stuff. I just can't stand it when I'm around someone or something like that, and I have to get away. That's why I can't listen to any type of, music or watch anything on television like that or anything, because, it just instantly I feel this, I don't want to be around it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to nothing. And that you can feel it because the energetic, principles. And so that's why I bring that up, is when you start to think of things in energy and vibration, you start to get to the real root of all of the human experience. And that's why so much of your very wise people talked about that, and talked about that the more we immerse ourselves in these positive life force, life giving energies. And that's why we talk about acid and alkaline, diet. And that's why Dr. Morse has in his charts how he shows that the different emotions are acid and acidic, and the different activities we do are acid and acidic, and so that's why we need to be aware of that, because you never know. That's why I bring it up and mention it, is because you never know when you mention some of these things, it starts to give people a little bit of enjoyment back in their life. Just going for a walk in the woods, especially when the spring is coming about and the weather's changing, and you feel so much better, and you feel so much like you're living life and you're doing some things that are enjoyable in your life, and so that's what we need more of. Anything that really helps you to feel good about your life, anything that helps to soothe your nervous system and you feel better, do more of that, because that's going to lead you to a more rich life, and it's going to lead you to helping yourself to get well, or help yourself to get healthier, or help yourself to recover from one of these major illnesses or diseases. So that's another thing I wanted to throw in there, because that is an important part of the protocol that we recommend people to do, is get out there and get as much fresh air and sunshine and nature as much as you can. Yeah. But yeah, I'll let y'all wrap it up.
Yeah, that is exactly what I always suggest to my clients. And even if you have a busy life, take out half. If you cannot take out an hour to do it, take out 50 minutes, anytime that you can be out there and just focus on that and hug a tree, right, Sarah?
At least,
That,
yeah, hug a tree, or
that,
take your shoes off and put your feet on the grass, because you're grounding. Yeah, any of that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I even just did a post on Facebook of TikTok that I found where they're showing all the things about the trees and how they're interconnected underground, and
That's
hugging
right.
them is so beneficial to us. And they made it out to be that it was like some hippie thing that people make fun of, like you're a tree hugger. Well, why don't they want you to hug a tree? I mean,
because it
geez, come
because it
on.
leads to too much positivity in your life, because did you know a whole group of forest of trees, they're all interconnected with their root system, like you said, that
Yeah,
one group of trees over on the side, if there starts a forest fire, the other side of the forest will know about it, and they can actually send more water over to the side where it's on fire to keep it
look
from
at that.
burning as bad. Yeah, it's very
And they don't even
amazing
teach
how.
us that, do they?
Yeah, it's a living ecosystem. It's a whole living organism. It's not just one tree. It's a whole ecosystem, Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually
Totally.
a book about it too. You
Yeah.
mentioned the video, but there's a whole book about it, and I think I have it somewhere. But nature is amazing, and it is part of us. We are nature.
Mm-hmm.
And Katie just mentioned something in astrology. Cancer is a good thing. So of course the world it's flipped upside. Of course the world flipped this word upside down. And I see it as part of healing, actually, like what you already mentioned that, and I put it in a video in one of the groups about how the junk is encapsulated, to get it out, but now it needs to come out, and that is often, a problem. And but it's all possible, So many people
Mm-hmm.
see that C word as a death sentence, and it absolutely is not. And unless you want it to be and go through all the treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it is yeah, we had today's podcast was number 111, And I
Well,
thought,
the perfect son.
yeah, that was interesting. And I wanna, you guys, you were awesome again, and I want to thank you and much love to you for being here. For everybody who listened and will listen still after the live is over, love to you all. And for the next, I have been trying to get Daniel Reuters back on, but he hasn't seen my message. He wrote a book about catching a cold, and I know what he thinks about, catching a cold and viruses and bacteria and mold even. He talked about that on our show, but I would love to him to talk about his new book. So I will do my best to get him on for next time because he has an amazing information about that, which is all backed up by science. You have some people saying, "Oh yeah, well you just say that, and maybe that's just your opinion," but no, he backs it up with a lot of science. And yeah, I would love to have him here. So thank you all again, and till the next time.
Bye
Yeah,
bye.
thank you, Toni, for
Thank
having
you,
us
Thad.
again. And thank you, Sarah, for joining us. And I always enjoy it,
Absolutely.
and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you all. Bye bye.